thing about being the self-claimed Britain's most easterly Ferrari fan is it does leave you a bit on the edge of things. So the closest circuit to me is an hour away, and that is Snetterton. And that's where I'm visiting today, because today's media day for the British F3 and British GT Championships. So let's see what's hanging out on the track. My interest in British GT and British F3 dates back to 2015. Like a lot of people, I had been to a track for a while. I thought, I want to take myself and my family to maybe the British Grand Prix or something. And, you know, it is what it is. It's expensive, and we fell rather short of the budget to go there. So I was looking around for something else to go, somewhere else, something else I could see. And I came across British GT and British F3, and the tickets were I could afford, so we had a look at it. As a series, they go to most of the major UK racing tracks. Prices for the MRVS ones ranging from about £20 for adults on a race day, basically free for children. The primary blue ribbon one is the event at Silverstone in June, and again that's around £20 mark for an adult and free for kids. And if you're someone who loves cars, it's well worth going to. You know, you've got 35 cars this year in total on the track. In GTs, comprising 19 GT3s, 16 GT4s, so a good mix of classes. It's primarily Pro-Am, so you get some relatively novice drivers or some less experienced guys, and you get some good grade GT drivers as well. It's not the case so much this year, but previously you've had people from WEC step into it. There's a couple of Aston WEC drivers in it as well this year. Several do sharing of Blancpain drivers, what was Blancpain drivers, now GT World Series drivers as well. So it's a good cast of drivers. No, I'm not going to go through all the teams and drivers in the series because there's 70 odd drivers. But TF Sport are traditionally the guys to beat. What their 4-driver lineup includes both the guys who won the title last year, split over their 2 cars this year. Graham Davidson, who won it, is partnered by Tom Canning, who's stepping up from GT4, and Johnny Adam is teaming up with his long-term Ahmed El Hafi, who he's raced with several times in what was the Blancpain series, among other things. So very experienced, very capable lineup, and they're looking likely to be the guys to beat again on this year. The other Aston team on the grid, Beechstein. They've got a very solid lineup. 4 drivers, good mix of youth and experience. They have championship winning pedigree. Fully expect them to be challenging for wins, podiums, and possibly the championship as well. Bentleys are represented on the grid by 2 teams this year, JRM and Team Parker Racing. They've always tended to be quite strong. You've seen many challenges in the past. Seb Morris and Rick Parfitt Jr. have had great success with the Bentleys, but they've moved on this year. At JRM, they've been replaced by Kelvin Fletcher and Martin Plowman, who are making the step up from GT4, which is exciting to see what they'll do in GT3, as they had quite a successful time in GT4. So that'll be good to watch. A growing force in British GT in both GT3 and GT4 is McLarens. The balance of the GT4 field this year is actually running McLarens. Optimum and GT3 have moved over from Aston Martins to McLarens as well, having seen the strength that they had at the end of last year in that team. And let's be honest with you, it looks pretty kind of nice. Balfour Motorsport probably can finish the season looking like possibly the strongest team on the grid last year, and their red 720 looked rather nice on track. For the lack of having a Ferrari thereof, I was happy to see that one. Definitely strong contenders again this year if they can build on the momentum they had at the tail end of last year. But it was exciting to see new cars entering the field. As well as the cars I've already mentioned and the teams I've already mentioned, there's also a couple of teams running Lamborghinis in the series, most notably Barwell. They're running with Phil Keane in one car, who's been the runner-up in the series about 3 years in a row now. And in the other car, Rob Collard has made the jump over from BTCC, which is quite interesting, so we see what he can do in a supercar. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And we have Mercedes entries in the form of Ram Racing and ABBA Racing. Ram Racing running with 2 cars, quite an experienced lineup from the look of it, so I think they'll have title aspirations as well. So that'll be enjoyable to watch. There's lots of teams which have good lineups and could be worth watching. It should be a tight season with any luck. Whilst I prefer the aggressive aero and power of the GT3 cars, there is definitely very much a place for the GT4 cars. A lot of young drivers have moved on to GT3 from GT4. First year I watched it, GT4 was won by Ross Gunn, who's now in the GT3 category and races in European World Endurance Championship, and a certain Jamie Chadwick, who has gone on to a few other things since then. So there's some exciting talent that can emerge and come through it. This year, half the grid seems to just be comprised of McLarens, and there's about 4 drivers in it who I think are part of McLaren GT Academy. So it's definitely moving on. But traditionally, it's the Astons that have been the front runners in it. Having said that, there's also quite a decent-sized presence these days for Ford Mustangs as well. So there's a good variety of makes in it as well. My main excitement for this series this season actually is the return of Jamie Caroline to racing after he'd been struggling for budget and had fallen out of single-seaters. So I'm excited to see what he'll do in GT racing now. I always get excited about seeing GT cars on track or in a paddock area or any environment I can see them, to be honest with you. I grew up reading Performance Car magazine in like the 1990s, and just I like supercars. I like, so it's a shame for me personally that there are no Ferraris, but when you have Aston Martins, you have McLarens, you have Bentleys, you have Mercedes, you have Lamborghinis. It's a hard life looking at them. So I'll encourage anyone to come along to it and enjoy seeing this stuff and listening to this stuff and getting to wander around the paddocks and see drivers and stuff. GT racing as a rule is just a very enjoyable environment to be around, I find. So on that note, I'm going to leave you with a little bit of noise from the paddock, and then we'll get on to the other series that we're going to talk about. If anyone's actually watched any of other videos I've done prior to this, you'll know that I quite like British F3, but I have sometimes been left wondering where it fits in the single-seater ladder to F1, as it were. Well, thank you, Carlin, for answering that question, as their driver lineup in FIA F3 this year includes 2 ex-British F3 champions and a race winner in British F3. So there we go. There is a spot for it, which is good. The Tautus BF3020 chassis that they use in the British F3 has had some upgrades this year. While they can't retrofit a halo to it, they have increased the protection at the top, the spike, I suppose, for want of a better way of putting it, to deflect debris and add extra for a rollover. They've changed the rear aero, adding a rear wing to the back engine cover. They've changed the front wing, making it more aggressive looking. Apparently that does add actual aero benefit as well. And they've sloped the rear wing, which makes it look more in keeping with the European and regional Formula 3 cars, which are also made by Tautus. So the cars look more aggressive and quite exciting this year, I think. Talking a little bit about some of the teams, the big team in British F3, the team to beat as a rule, is Carlin. They were second in the Drivers' Championships in 2016 and 2018, and they won in 2017 with Inam Ahmed, and in 2019 with Clement Novalak, who are both now racing in the FIA F3 with them. They've got Caleb Fredrickson back for a second year. He said having learnt the tracks last year, he's looking forward to being able to put together a title challenge this year, and at Carlin there's no reason why he shouldn't do. So they'll be planning on announcing their other drivers soon, but they'll definitely, you should imagine, be fielding a full 3-car team. They had 3 cars on track at the media day. Unfortunately for one of them, that ended up on the back of a low loader. But never mind, it's all a learning experience, getting used to the cars if they've not been in them before. So, we shall see what happens during the season. The other strong challenger this year is Douglas Motorsport. They have the 2018 British F4 champion Kieran Dewis, who's the highest returning driver from the 2019 season. He finished 4th in the championship in the end last year, but he may well be the guy to beat. Also returning is Ulysse de Pauw, who finished 3rd in French F4 in 2018 and 7th in British F3 last year. So another year under his belt, he could be challenging as well for wins, if not the championship. But they do have a very strong lineup there. The third driver they've got is Manif Hijawi, apologies for butchering that, who was racing in UAE FF4 and MRF Challenge recently. So, again, experience but learning. The other main challenger realistically is going to be Double R. One of the R stands for Raikkonen. They're winners in the British F3 in 2016, 2018, and they'll feature Benjamin Pedersen, who's returning for a second series, and Sebastian Alvarez and Louis Foster, who finished second and third in British F4 last season. So, on paper, that's quite possibly the strongest lineup out of the lot of them. We'll see how it all comes together, but I'm excited to see how they do this year, and I think they've probably got the smartest, coolest liveries I've seen on the grid out of all of them yet this year, although I do like Chris Dittman Racing's liveries. Some of this has to do with the fact that last year, of course, they ran Ayrton Simmons to third in the championship, and I quite support Ayrton and wish him well in whatever he's doing this year. Josh Skelton steps up from British F4, where he finished fourth last year. He's going to be partnered by Nico Veron, who will join him after running 3 races in the series last year. Strong season last year for Fortec, with Jonathan Hoggard finishing second in the championship. This season they've only got 1 driver confirmed so far, although they had 2 cars at the test. Christian Olsen, when he was on the track, looked to have some pace, but he did unfortunately have an accident. He's stepped over from endurance racing, so it's quite a strange move, but wish him well, and wait to see if Fortec will get into the other car that they had at testing. He'll be going to their 50th year. Currently, they've only got 1 driver confirmed in the series, and that's Oliver Clark, who's a Norfolk lad whose single-seater career so far has been mainly racing in the States. But he's wanted to see how he fared back in the UK, so good luck to him. With any luck, given a chance to learn the circuits and whatever else, he will probably get stronger as the season goes on, I should imagine. But we shall see how he does. So, last team I'm going to talk about Alanin Racing. They've actually a full team of 3 drivers confirmed for this year, and they have previous form as race winners in the series, though last year their highest position in the Drivers' Championship was 12th, which I'm sure they'll be hoping for a stronger season this year. With some second-year drivers in the field, and some young guys talented stepping up from F4, as well as Piers Pryor, who's apparently struggled for budget in the past, but is supposed to be a talent. It should be a better season for them. Well, the testing results do suggest and support the theory that KLM could do well this year, but of course testing results, and they don't necessarily mean a whole lot. Kieran is also up there, Louis Foster potentially. But yeah, that's it for me. I'm looking forward to seeing British GT and British F3 hopefully at Snetterton in May. I would advise anyone who wants to go watch some race cars and perhaps can't afford F1, go and check them out when they rock up at one of your local circuits. But bye-bye for now, and thank you very much for watching. As I said previously, I'm still very much learning how to do all this YouTube make a video type stuff, but if anyone wants to subscribe and see if I get any better, then go for it. Thank you very much. Bye bye.